started on a quiet Saturday. Raven, 34, was cradling a mug of ginger coffee by her apartment window in Riverview, Carolina, watching the neighborhood wake up. Her parents, Eunice and Leonard, were early 60s Southern church pillars who loved control almost as much as they loved being seen as generous. Her younger sister Kiana, 24 and 6 months married, had been the family favorite since her first school recital. Raven wasn't unloved, she was useful. If a tire blew, if a bill came due, if a plan fell apart, Raven's name floated up like a bank branch with a smile. 3 years earlier, after a promotion at the credit union, Raven bought a small ridge house in the Blue River foothills. It wasn't fancy, 2 bedrooms, cedar siding, a porch with a view, but it was hers. She didn't get up there as often as she wanted, yet every visit felt like loosening a too-tight necklace. The air up there made room for her. Her phone buzzed at 8:02 a.m. It was Malik, the realtor who'd found her the place and swore she'd be his first call if she ever sold. "Morning, Raven," he said, puzzled. "Quick question. You putting the Ridge house on the market? I just saw a listing with your floor plan, your creek, your exact lot size." Raven's cup stopped midair. "What?" "Went live last week," Malik said. "All the details fit, but the contact number isn't yours. Text me the link." When the message came through, Raven clicked, and the breath left her. Photos she'd never taken, a description that read like someone had traced her deed, and the contact, E. Cole. Her mother's name, followed by Eunice's number in bold. Raven didn't rehearse. She hit call. "Hi, baby," her mother answered, syrupy and bright, the voice she used when she'd already done the thing and was hoping you'd be too polite to fight. "Ma," Raven said, steady. "What is this listing for my house?" A beat of silence. Then Eunice slid into soft authority. "Oh, you saw it. Yes, we posted. It's time to bless your sister. Kiana's expecting and she and Devin need their own space. Your mountain place sits empty most months. Selling it helps the family. That's my property." "Family property," her mother corrected, as if editing a typo. "You know you don't use it like that." Raven felt heat rise in her cheeks. "You cannot sell my house." Leonard's baritone drifted on speaker. "Ray, think about family. Remember Kiana's wedding? We asked for $60,000 just to make it decent, and you only gave $5. A good sister would have handled it." Raven swallowed a bitter laugh. "I gave what I could, and this isn't a request. It's theft." "It's not theft," Eunice said, the patience sharpening. "It's stewardship. We've handled your paperwork for years. We have copies of your ID, your signature on file, your documents right here at the house. There won't be any holdup." That sentence landed like a door slamming. Raven looked at her own reflection in the black screen of her silent TV and saw something in her eyes harden. "I'm hanging up now," she said. She did. Then she set the phone down and wrapped both hands around her mug until the heat carried her back into her body. For years, she'd equated good daughter with open wallet. If a cousin's rent was late, she paid it. When her parents' mortgage hiccuped, she set up a transfer. When Kiana wanted a flower wall for the reception, Raven found a florist and negotiated a discount. Love had always meant fix it. But this wasn't asking. This was trespass dressed up as tradition. Her phone buzzed again. "Malik." "You were right," Raven said by way of hello. "And I need a favor." "I'm listening." "How fast can a clean buyer close if they're serious? If financing's ready, we could aim for next Friday." "Make it happen," Raven said. "Price at the low end of market. I'll shave another $5,000 if they can close inside the week. And I'll add a rush bonus to your commission." Malik exhaled. "Let me work the phones." Raven set her mug down and opened her laptop. First, she removed her parents' viewing access to her accounts, permissions she'd granted 2 years earlier when Leonard's blood pressure had spiked and bills got tangled. Next, she toggled off the automatic $650 transfer she'd been sending to their mortgage servicer for a season. That season had stretched to 24 months. Her phone rang again. "Kiana." Raven let it roll to voicemail. Twice. On the third try she answered. "Ray, what did you say to Mom?" Kiana's voice pitched high. "She's talking about locks. We have a plan. I picked an apartment. Devin sourced furniture. We hired a decorator. You can't just... It was never yours." Raven said gently, "And you two can plan within your means." "That's cruel," Kiana snapped. "Just give Mom the keys so we can show the place. We'll cut you in when it sells." "There are no keys to give, and there won't be a sale with your names on it." She hung up. Her hands trembled, but the tremor felt like a muscle waking up, not failing. By Sunday morning, Malik called back, voice crisp with good news. I've got someone. Principal at Eastside High, been looking for a quiet place near the trails. Conventional loan cleared, appraisal waiver likely. If your docs are tight, we can stamp this by Thursday. Send me the packet, Raven said, already pulling files. Those days blurred. Remote notarizations, a drive up for a last walkthrough, a locksmith to change the hardware at closing. On Thursday afternoon, funds hit. Raven watched digits march across her screen and sit down in her account like soldiers who finally had a commander. She didn't text her family, didn't post a single photo of a sold sign. She went home, turned off her phone, and stood in the shower until the water ran cool. For the first time in years, she could imagine choices that had nothing to do with rescuing anyone. She slept. 2 weeks later, on a Tuesday that smelled like rain, her phone went feral. Eunice. Leonard. Tiana. Eunice again. Raven let them bounce. On the fourth call, she answered. What did you do? Her mother demanded, brittle panic under every word. We took buyers to the ridge and there are new locks. Is this some tantrum? I sold my house last week, Raven said. Those locks belong to the new owners. If you have questions, speak to them. I don't own it anymore. Silence, then a laugh that wasn't laughter. You're being ridiculous. Just bring the keys. There are no keys for you, Raven said, and ended the call. She put her phone face down and paced a slow circle in the living room. Out the window, clouds dragged their bellies across the rooftops. Somewhere in the building, a baby squealed, then settled. Raven's chest felt strangely light, like something heavy had finally loosened its grip. She knew, of course, the storm wasn't over. People who are used to your yes don't accept your no with a thank you card. But a line had been drawn. And for once, she was on her side of it. They didn't accept my no. Of course they didn't. An hour after I told my mother the house was gone, Tiana rang me like fire alarms. I let it ring twice, then answered because curiosity is a stubborn thing. What did you do, Ray? She snapped. Mom said there are new locks. Devin and I already chose an apartment, paid the designer a retainer, picked out the crib. You can't pull this. It was never yours to pull, I said. You and Devin can plan a life inside your budget like the rest of us. Wow. Cold. Just hand Mom the keys so we can show the place. We'll sort out the split after. There are no keys for y'all, I said and ended it. 2 quiet days followed. Quiet like the sky gets before a storm breaks. On Monday, Malik called, voice careful. Raven, I hate to bother you, but the new owner reached out. Someone tried to force the back door at the ridge last night. Alarm tripped, whole thing's on camera. My jaw clenched. Do they know who? A pause. Yeah, it was Leonard, my father. At my old door with a screwdriver, like a stranger testing a window. The police came fast, Malik added. Mr. Faulkner, the principal, filed a report. They did arrest Leonard. He asked that you be informed. My stomach fell through the floor and kept going. The spite of it. The certainty. Even faced with a sold deed and a changed lock, they still believed my boundaries were pretend. 5 minutes later, my phone lit with Dad. I let it ring, then answered. Fix it, Leonard barked. No hello. Call the police and tell them it's your house. Tell them I've always had access. It isn't my house, I said. You knew that. We thought you were fronting, he said, voice hot. Change locks, scare folks, then come to your senses. I was serious, and now you're in legal trouble for trying to enter someone else's home. He launched into names I'd heard since childhood. Selfish, ungrateful, disrespectful, like throwing old tools at a new wall. I hung up on the first one. By evening, the headline popped up on my local news app. Man detained after attempted entry at Northridge home. No names, but enough details to make my heart thud. The anchor mentioned disorderly conduct added during the arrest. When rage meets consequence, it often hisses. The next morning, Eunice called with a wail loaded in the chamber. Raven, please, your father could face charges. We need a lawyer, and retainers aren't cheap. Mom, I said gently, y'all planned forgery like it was brunch. You told me you had my ID copies and won't be any holdup. You were stealing. We are family, she insisted, voice turning church soft. Family don't call the police. I didn't call the police, I said. The owner did, because you sent Dad to a house that doesn't belong to us. You've torn this family apart, she cried. Tiana's pregnant. We can't cover our mortgage since you stopped helping. Your father might get probation. This is on you. Something unknotted in my chest. No, ma'am, this is on choices. Yours. Ungrateful girl, she spat, and I ended the call. Then I blocked them. Eunice, Leonard, Tiana. Peace is sometimes a settings change. Weeks passed, quiet grew roots. I was learning what relief sounded like. It wasn't trumpets, it was the absence of sirens. Then Aunt Patrice, Eunice's older sister, the only adult who ever told me I didn't have to bleed to prove I loved, called to check on me. I won't urge reconciliation, she said. Just updating you. Leonard took a plea, 9 months probation, community service plus a fine. No jail. But when the distribution center heard about the arrest, they let him go. Hard to get another guard job with a fresh charge. I breathed out. Not joy. Something more complicated. Justice doesn't always feel like balloons. And the house? I asked. Tiana and Devin moved into Eunice and Leonard's, Aunt Patrice said. They refinanced and stuck the deed in Kiana's name to keep the bank off their backs. Your mama's working extra shifts at the grocery, but the numbers still look ugly. They had to borrow for the attorney, then emptied their little retirement to pay folks back. I pressed my fingers to my eyes. They chose this road and still think I drove the car. Patrice was quiet a beat. People used to your yes will call your no betrayal. After we hung up, I sat by my window and watched the street lamps flick on one by one, like a line of small decisions choosing light. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt honest. They had drawn a circle that only counted me when I paid the entrance fee. I'd stepped out, and for the first time, the air fit my lungs. Silence is not empty. It has a texture. After I blocked my parents and Kiana, my apartment got so quiet I could finally hear my own life. Money stopped bleeding out first. Without their mortgage draft, and with the Ridge House proceeds sitting in my account like a spine, I paid off my own condo loan in full. That move alone freed about $1,350 a month. Add the $650 I'd been sending to their servicer, and like flicking 2 bad lights off, I had roughly $2,000 breathing room every 30 days. I built a new ritual, automatic transfers to savings on payday, then I paid bills, then I let myself enjoy a sliver without guilt. I'd been coaxing my old Civic through prayer and oil changes. I traded it for a 3-year-old Nissan Altima. Nothing flashy, just reliable, and drove it off the lot without bargaining my dignity. I cried in the parking space, not because of the car, but because the pen I used to sign felt like it finally belonged in my hand. Peace showed up in smaller ways too. No more 11:43 p.m. emergencies that started with, "Can you send?" No more flinching when my phone buzzed. No more calculating how to say no without setting off a sermon. I started sleeping. The knots in my shoulders decided to retire. I also started therapy. Dr. Simone Morgan, a black woman with a steady gaze, let me tell the whole mess without blinking. They conditioned you, she said one afternoon, to believe love equals labor and money is your ticket to belonging. That's financial abuse, Raven. Not an opinion, a pattern. I'd never had a phrase for it. A phrase makes a door. On the other side, I could name what happened without minimizing it. We traced the receipts, how requests were framed as family values, how my boundary attempts got recast as betrayal, how my help never closed the hunger. People who benefit from you shrinking rarely applaud when you grow, Dr. Morgan added, pen still. Holidays tested the new muscles. My birthday alone was surprisingly sweet. Pancakes for dinner, a walk by the river, an unhurried bath. But Christmas bit harder. On the 24th, I signed up for a morning shift at the Southside Community Kitchen. I ladled soup, handed out pies, and walked home feeling human in a way I hadn't in years. Service without being used. Turns out there's a difference. Aunt Patrice called sometimes, careful with her words. "Baby, your cousin ran into Kiana at the store," she said in February. "Baby girl had the stroller and a face like sleep left her months ago. She and Devin still at your parents'. Tension's thick enough to slice. Devin keeps talking about moving. Can't afford much with that note and a newborn." I listened, compassion and caution braided tight. I wanted to feel sorry without mistaking sympathy for an invoice. "How's Leonard?" I asked. "Probation check-ins, odd handyman jobs," Patrice said. "Eunice picked up extra shifts, money still tight. They telling folks you froze them out. You know how stories travel." I did, but I had my own story now, and it didn't require a jury. By spring, the quiet turned into space. I started seedlings on my windowsill, collards, basil, cherry tomatoes like tiny lanterns. On Saturdays, I'd drive the Altima out to a community garden in East Riverview and rent a plot. Dirt under my nails felt like proof I was growing things that weren't crises. Sometimes the guilt tried to visit. It wore my mother's voice or my father's sigh. I let it knock and I didn't open the door. Choices had consequences, for all of us. Mine finally included me. One evening, I stood at my window and imagined a small place closer to work, a 2-bedroom bungalow with a fence and a patch of ground big enough for okra and sunflowers. Not a ridge this time, just a home that didn't require me to apologize for having it. That's when my phone lit up with an unknown number. Normally I'd ignore it, but something in my chest said, "Pick up." "Miss Cole?" a woman's voice asked, professional even. "This is Attorney Wallace. I represent Mr. and Mrs. Cole, your parents." I didn't speak. I could hear my pulse in my ears. "I'm calling," she continued, "because they've initiated a family claim regarding certain funds and property decisions. They're requesting a meeting." The old me would have panicked. The new me took a breath, glanced at the little tray of seedlings by the window, and said, "Email me the details." I hung up, sat down, pressed my palms to the table and felt it steady beneath me. Peace isn't the absence of problems, it's the presence of boundaries, and mine were about to be tested properly. Attorney Wallace's email arrived like a cold envelope, neutral letterhead, warm phrases that meant trouble. Family claim, equitable interest, customary support. All the ways to dress a demand in church clothes. Old me would have spiraled. New me opened a fresh notebook, titled a page, Evidence, and started a list. I called Dr. Morgan first. "I can't tell you what to do legally," she said, "but I can remind you. Adults are allowed to keep what belongs to them. Hire counsel who won't flinch." So I did. I found Jordan Caldwell, black woman, sharp bob, gentlest voice I've ever heard, paired with elbows made of law. We met on a Tuesday. I slid a folder across her desk. Inside, screenshots of the fake listing with my mother's number as the contact. The voicemail where Eunice chirped about having my ID and signature so there won't be any holdup. Moloch's email confirming the sale timeline, the police report from the night Leonard tried the back door, and the local news clip noting the arrest with disorderly conduct, added like a footnote. Jordan leafed through, eyebrows making small acknowledgments. "They put all this in writing?" she asked. "People get bold on the phone," I said. "I saved what I could." She smiled, not unkindly. "Good. Here's the plan. I'll respond to Wallace, insist on a joint meeting at my office, and set terms. No surprises, no theatrics. You'll speak only when you want to. I'll carry the law, you carry your peace." "Deal," I said, even though my hands shook under the table. The day came gray and humid. I wore navy pants, a blouse that didn't ask permission, and flats because I wanted my feet honest on the ground. Aunt Patrice drove me and sat in the lobby like a quiet lighthouse. In the conference room, a long table, water glasses, a bowl of mints that looked like tiny shields. Wallace arrived with a leather pad and my parents in tow. Eunice in a silk scarf and an expression that said she was here to be magnanimous. Leonard stiff, jaw set. Kiana not present, which felt like the truest thing she'd done in months. Jordan entered last, soft-voiced and anchored. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "Before we speak about feelings, let's speak about facts." She slid copies of the screenshots forward. "This listing used Miss Cole's property details and Miss Eunice Cole's phone number. This voicemail," she pressed play, "contains an admission regarding possession of Miss Cole's personal identification and intent to use her signature without consent." Eunice waved a hand. "That's not what I meant." Jordan's gaze didn't wobble. "You said there won't be any holdup. A holdup for what, if not signing without her?" Silence. The air shifted a degree. Wallace cleared her throat. "Our position is simply that the family made substantial contributions to the upkeep of the mountain property and thereby—" "Respectfully," Jordan said. "No, my client paid the mortgage, taxes, maintenance, and insurance from her own accounts. If your client spent weekends there or changed a porch light, that's not equity. It's visitation." Leonard leaned in. "She owed us. We raised her." The way he said owed put iron in my spine. Jordan didn't blink. "Parenting is not a promissory note. In any case, your attempt to enter the property after the sale resulted in an arrest. Adding that to a claim for equitable interest is unwise." Wallace shifted. We would like to avoid escalation. So would we, Jordan said. Here are our terms to end this clean. Your clients will withdraw any claims, written or implied, against Miss Cole's funds or property. They will sign a statement acknowledging the mountain property was exclusively Miss Cole's to sell. They will agree not to list, market, or otherwise represent ownership of any asset in Miss Cole's name, now or in the future. In exchange, we will not pursue a protective order today, and we will not share the voicemail or police report beyond this room. Eunice's head snapped up. You'd blackmail your own mother? I spoke for the first time. No, ma'am. I'm offering you privacy. I could have posted your listing on Facebook with a caption and some popcorn emojis. I didn't. I could have shown up to your church and told the usher board you planned to forge my signature. I didn't. This is the quiet version. Her mouth opened, closed. Leonard stared at the table like it had answers. Wallace turned to them, voice low, legal. This is a reasonable resolution. The alternative is discovery. The word discovery floated in the room like a storm warning. Leonard made a small sound in his throat. Eunice looked at me, but not in the eyes. Somewhere near my shoulder, where daughters used to stand doing chores. What about Kiana's baby? She tried, softening, reaching for the part of me that flinched. You'd leave your niece with nothing? There's a difference between not paying your bills and leaving a baby with nothing, I said. I love that child I haven't met. That doesn't mean I owe all of you my life. We took a break. In the hallway, Aunt Patrice pressed a peppermint into my palm like a blessing. You're handling this, she whispered. Let the grown folks be grown. Back inside, Wallace produced a draft. Jordan marked it with a good pen, sliding phrases into place like tiles. Withdraw, acknowledge, refrain, confidentiality. Eunice signed first, fast, a flourish like she was hosting a gala. Leonard signed slower, as if the ink might argue. Wallace countersigned. Jordan slid the paper to me and tapped a paragraph. Read this one twice. I did. It said they were done. It said I didn't imagine the theft. It said boundaries aren't rudeness, they're property lines. We'll scan and send you the executed copy, Wallace said. I'll advise my clients to comply. Please do, Jordan replied, then added, if there's any further contact that violates this, our next conversation is with a judge. The meeting ended without hugs. In the lobby, Kiana stood by the elevator, surprise on her face like she'd thought she'd arrived to a different movie. She had the stroller today, a round-cheeked girl blinking up at fluorescent lights, a purple pacifier bobbing. For a moment, the air thinned. I felt the tug, the old script that said reach for your purse, fix what you didn't break, pay a toll to be called kind. Kiana looked at me and then down at her daughter. Her name is Marlee, she said quietly, not quite an invitation, not quite a wall. She's beautiful, I said, and meant it. Kiana's eyes shimmered. This is hard. I know, I said. But hard and wrong aren't the same. The elevator chimed. Wallace shepherded my parents inside. Eunice kept her chin high. Leonard kept his mouth align. Kiana lingered a second longer, then stepped in, the stroller's wheel bumping the threshold like a question. The doors closed. Outside, the sky had opened just enough to let sunlight through, a break in the cloud. I walked out with Aunt Patrice and Jordan, a signed piece in my bag, the weight of it strange and right. On the sidewalk, Aunt Patrice squeezed my hand. You brought receipts, she said, half proud, half sad. Now go spend your piece. I looked up at that slice of light and decided, then and there, to find a small house with a patch of earth big enough for collards and sunflowers and quiet. I had one part left to write. I started looking the next week. Not for another escape high on a ridge, but for something close to my life. A small bungalow on a quiet street in East Riverview, 15 minutes from work, 10 from the community garden. White trim, brick steps, 2 bedrooms, a tired fence begging for paint, and a square of earth out back that caught morning light like a blessing. I walked through it on a Tuesday. The floors creaked honest. The kitchen window framed a slice of sky. I could see a kettle on the stove and a vase of basil by the sink. I could see me there, not as a visitor in my own life, but as the owner of it. I made an offer that afternoon. By Friday, the keys were warm in my hand. The first thing I did wasn't paint. It wasn't furniture. I planted. Sunflower seeds along the fence line, collards in a neat row, cherry tomatoes near the back step so I could pluck them on my way inside. I pressed each seed into soil like a small promise. I will grow things that don't demand my apology. On moving day, Aunt Patrice brought foil pans and a folding chair that had seen more barbecues than I had birthdays. We ate on boxes. She looked around my little living room like it was a mouth she was pleased to fill. You did this, she said. Not instead of love. Because you finally included yourself in it. The quiet here was different. It wasn't the hush of hiding. It was the kind that hums when a house is learning your steps. I hung wind chimes on the porch. They made small talk with the breeze. Kiana texted a week later from a new number. Can I send you a photo of Marley? I stared at the screen, then typed back, you can send pictures. No requests for money. No triangles through mom. She replied, okay, just pictures. Then a photo arrived. Marley in a yellow onesie, fists balled, cheeks like the moon. My chest softened and stayed wary, both at once. A month rolled over. Dr. Morgan said, boundaries are living things. You tend them like a garden. So I set mine in writing. If anyone needed to reach me, there was a P.O. box. No pop-ups at my door. No conversations through attorneys unless they made it necessary. I wrote it plain, mailed it, certified, and put the signed agreement from the meeting in the same folder as my deed. Receipts and roots, side by side. Sundays I walked the neighborhood, learning what the block knew. Tyrone next door tinkered on a vintage Buick and called me Miss Raven with a grin. Miss Joy across the street ran a daycare and could parallel park a church van like ballet. I joined the Saturday volunteer shift at the community kitchen, this time not to fill a holiday ache, but because showing up felt right in my bones. Service without being used, still true, still sweet. One evening, I came home to a brown envelope on the step. No return address, just my name in Kiana's handwriting. Inside, a letter on lined paper, messy and careful. Ray, I don't know how to say this without sounding like I'm asking for something. I'm not. I wanted to say, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I watched mom make family mean your wallet. I let it mean my convenience. I let pregnancy become a weapon we pointed at you. Devin sleeps on the couch some nights. We're trying, but it's hard. Marley likes music. She smiles when I sing off key. I don't want her to learn the version of love we grew up on. I don't expect anything from you, but I wanted you to know I see it now. Kiana. I sat on the steps and read it twice. The old script reached for a purse string that no longer existed. The new script said, hear the apology, hold your boundary. I wrote back with a picture of my sunflowers sprouting and a single sentence. I'm glad you see it. I'm cheering for you to build something different for Marley. Weeks turned to a season. The sunflowers stretched taller than the fence. The collards fanned out like a choir. I learned the creaks under my bed, the light that hit the mantel at 4 p.m., the sound the kettle made exactly 1 second before it boiled. I learned, slowly, stubbornly, that peace is not a prize you earn by disappearing. It's a home you make and take care of, on purpose. Sometimes Eunice's voice tried to hitch a ride on the wind. Sometimes Leonard's silence tried to file itself under ode. I let those ghosts pass through like weather. If they ever wanted to meet me where the truth lives, no demands, no revisions of the past, I had a small table and 2 chairs on a porch that faced the sunset. If not, I had a life that didn't require their permission to be good. On a late summer afternoon, Aunt Patrice brought Marley by with Kiana. We sat on the porch steps, plastic cups sweating lemon water, baby cooing at my chimes. Kiana watched the sunflowers nod over the fence and said, quiet, I didn't know you could say no and still have a family. You can, I said. You just might have to build the family from scratch. She nodded, eyes on her daughter. I'm learning. Marley's tiny fingers wrapped around one of mine and held on like new growth. That night I wrote Nia, because stories need tellers, and told her she could tell mine. Changed names, changed places, truth intact. Not because I wanted applause, but because I wanted someone else's responsible one. To hear it and know there was another ending available. Here is mine. Plain and whole. I sold the house they treated like a piggy bank. I bought a home I could live inside. I drew a line and stayed on my side of it. I planted sunflowers and collards and peace, and when the wind moves through them, it sounds like a future I chose. And maybe that is the beauty of Raven's story. She didn't just sell a house, she stopped being the family's emergency account and finally bought herself a life, a porch, a garden, a quiet home, a future she no longer had to apologize for. So tell me, was Raven right to sell the property before her family could take it from her? Drop your thoughts in the comments, subscribe for more powerful revenge and redemption stories, and tell me the city you're watching from. Thank you for watching, because sometimes the best ending is not revenge. It is finally choosing yourself.